I'm talking very fast and a lot. Keep up with me, babe. I'm probably sure it gets a little bit easier in a minute. Hey babes, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Deanna May, and today we will be doing a very thorough breakdown and review of Mickey 7 by Edward Ashton. I'm so excited to film this video because I did extensive 8 pages of notes, babes. We're not going to miss a thing. The movie Mickey 17 is coming out on March 7th, and this video will be out before that movie is out. So go see the movie and compare it to what you learned here today and let me know what you think. Anyways, let's get into it. What is Mickey 7 about? Basically, this guy here, this is our table of Mickeys. Our Mickey 1, he lives in a world where humans want to spread their humanness in every possible planet and world that they can. And they take these big ships and they take a bunch of human embryos, like little baby unborn humans, and they go into other planets. And there's only a certain amount of people that can fit on these ships because honestly, it takes a long time to fly there. And they got a couple pilots, you know, they got some people to be fighters, some security. They have people who do the plants. They have people who do the food. They have a person called the expendable. Basically, expendable is just a person who can do the dirty work. All right, the person you don't care that they can die doing the dirty work because you have a bioprint of their body and you have scans of their mind. I should tell you what I rate this book. I'm rating it a 5 out of 5 stars because I had a good time. It was introspective and made me think. It had a great plot, a great story. I liked all of the characters. Was a lot of character growth of maybe 3 characters got some character growth, and it was funny and it was action packed. It didn't take 500 pages to do all those things. Like there was very little dull moments in this book. I highly recommend you go read it though. And I will say Edward Ashton is a quantum physics professor. The author of this book is a quantum physics professor. So take that information and do with it as you may, because that means you're gonna get some thinking things in here, babes. Here's what Goodreads says an expendable is: a human clone utilized for dangerous work on space exploration missions. An expendable's personality and memories may be transferred intact into a new body if and when the current host dies. Our babes, our boy Mickey, he signed up to be an expendable. Here's how we start the book. Mickey falls down a hole. He's going out for recon for this guy named Marshall. Alright, Marshall's this very unserious type of, he thinks he's just like the boss of this whole mission. And so he's been sending Mickey, our boy Mickey, out on these recons to like go and look at our planet. And right now we're on this planet called Nilfheim. This is Nilfheim, right? We're on this planet called Nilfheim. So Mickey, he's going out to do recon just on this planet, and then he falls down a hole. He's like, ouch, I can't believe I just fell down a hole. And he's looking around, he's like, oh, my wrist hurts. And then he's blinking, and he finally gets a message on his ocular. An ocular is literally just like a phone implanted in your head, and you can like read messages and respond to messages with like a couple blinks of your eye, and it's like implanted in your head. He gets a message from his friend named Berto, played by Steven in the movies. Even though Berto is described as being very tall and redheaded, I think that Steven is actually going to be a really good Berto, but let's keep going. Berto's like, dude, you just fell down a hole. And Mickey's like, yeah, Q, come get me. And Berto's like, no, I can't get you. It's not worth the risk. And Mickey's like, it's not worth the risk? And Berto's like, you're an expendable, dude. This is your job. And Mickey's like, what about the fact that we're best friends? He's like, no, I'm sorry, I can't come get you. Mickey says, I haven't uploaded in the past couple weeks. And Berto's like, that's not my fault. Why haven't you been uploading? Is there anything that you want to tell yourself? An uploading process, you'll learn a little bit later, but it takes like an hour or so. And it's when Mickey sits down and he uploads any information that his current self might not know as past Mickey. So the first upload, Mickey 1, it took 18 hours because it had all his memories from childhood. You know, he saw his mother's face and everything he's ever done, it goes in this upload. And so when the second Mickey comes, he just takes information that Mickey already knew and just adds on whatever extra information that Mickey 2 added on. So basically Mickey 7 is saying, I haven't uploaded in a while, probably since he's been Mickey 6. So that means if Mickey 8 came, Mickey 8 wouldn't know anything that Mickey 7 knew. It would be from Mickey 6 to Mickey 8. And then Berto's like, why didn't you upload? Like, that's your job. You should be uploading. And Berto's like, do you want to tell me anything that I should tell your future self? Because you'll learn that Mickey depends on Berto. I'm talking very fast and a lot. Keep up with me, babe. I'm probably sure it gets a little bit easier in a minute. Mickey depends on Berto and someone else you'll find out in a minute, on them to tell him anything that his self past Mickey doesn't tell future Mickey. And Mickey's like, no, nothing I want to add. Hasn't been feeling like uploading lately. He hasn't really been feeling like himself, ironically. And Umberto's like, okay, well, I'm gonna, I'm sorry that you have to die, but I'm gonna go now. Like, you're in creeper territory. You don't know what a creeper is yet. He's like, I can't risk my aircraft going down to get you. Berto is a pilot. He's hovering over the hole that Mickey fell in his aircraft. Mickey's like, all right, well, I'm just gonna lay here and die. And then Berto flies away. Later, we get a message. We find out this is Nasha, our baby girl Nasha. Mickey's like, Berto told you that I was down here, and she was like, yeah. And he's like, well, Berto said that it was impossible to come get me. And then Nasha said he wasn't just properly motivated. I love baby girl. I love Nasha. She's my favorite character. Obviously, I mean, she's that woman. Can't help it, but she's just that girl. I love her in this book. And so Nasha's like, well, I'm gonna come get you. And Mickey's like, okay. But then while he's laying there, he's like, I don't know, my wrist pretty hurts and it's not a safe dive. Nasha is also a pilot. We later learn that she's only one of the 2 pilots that are on this colony expedition, which is Nasha and Berto. They're the only 2 pilots. And then Mickey's like, hey, you know what, babes? Don't even come. I don't want you to risk your life for it, because if you die, I'm gonna be heartbroken about it, because if I die, another me will come, but if you die, that's the end of it, and I couldn't live with myself, even though I would have to, right? That's what he says. It's like a bunch of little funny quotes in there. I'll upload all of my Goodreads highlights and like little quips and stuff, so you can go in and read them, because it's some good little funny quotes in here. Nasha's like, oh, are you serious? Like, I can come get you. And he's like, no, don't even do it. And so she waits there for a minute. She's like, do you want me to stay with you? She said, how are you gonna do it? And he said, I guess freeze to death. I've never frozen to death before. And she's like, okay. So they hang up. She waits for a minute. And then finally he sees her signal floats away. And after laying there, he's like, I could probably get up. And so he gets up. And so we see this is Mickey 7. Our Mickey 7. We see Mickey 7 gets up and he just starts walking around. He's walking around. He's like, there are tunnels down here, but there's no volcano. So how are there tunnels underground? Obviously someone built them. And then he's thinking, oh, the creepers built them, right? And so he's walking in these tunnels. He sees 2 tunnels diverge, 2 paths diverge in Darkwood. I took the one less trouble. And he starts walking down a path, and then he starts to hear like little skittering around. And we realize that he knows that these are little creepers. This is a little creeper. He knows that there are creepers around, and that, Berto was right, they are in creeper territory. And then out of nowhere, he sees this ginormous creeper. And the ginormous creeper is looking at him, and he's looking at the creeper. He's like, should I become a bear? Should I become big and be a bear and try to scare it away? And he's like, maybe I shouldn't. And so he stops and he tries to back away. Edward Ashton, again, the author, he likes to take moments and times to give us a little story about how Mickey 1, when he was back home on Midgard. This is a picture of Asgard from the Marvel Universe, but it's where Mickey 1 is originally from is called Midgard. That's why I just put the picture. It's there's Asgard, but he's from Midgard. There's a spider in his room, and so Mickey picks up the spider, keeps it close in his hand, keeps it safe, and he walks out and he lets the spider out into the garden. And then Mickey says that the giant creeper comes, picks up his body, and walks his body to the tunnels, and then the creature puts his body down at the end of the tunnels, and it's just kind of just like packed snow at the end of the tunnel. So Mickey pushes the snow, and it gives in, and it falls down, and then it's an open hole, and he's able to leave the tunnel. So then Mickey says that it's me. I'm the spider. The creeper is me as a child, and he just let me out into the garden. And so that's the end of the first chapter. I thought it was I thought it was like a lovely wrapping bow. What a great first chapter to start this book. And then Mickey starts walking towards the dome, and he's like, He tries to call Nasha and Berto. None of them answer. He's like, well, that's probably because they think he's dead. And then he thinks about leaving a message and saying, hey guys, I'm not dead. I'm still alive. I'm walking back to the dome now. But he decides not to, and he decides just to keep this information to himself, just in case Berto did go back and report that Mickey died and that there's a Mickey 8 out there. Just in case. He doesn't want anyone to know, because they don't like multiples. They don't like multiple Mickeys. And right now, Mickey 7 is the latest version. And so Mickey 7, he walks towards the dome. The dome is, I have a picture of the Vegas dome here, but this is where our humans are living on Nilfgaard, because Nilfgaard is kind of like an ice planet, very cold. And so they're living in this dome, and this security guard, Gabe, is waiting outside the dome. He's like, hey Mickey, what's up? What you doing out here all early? And then Mickey's like, hey, I'm just doing recon. Marshall Overlord, evil Overlord Marshall is always having me do some. He's not evil, but Overlord Marshall is always having me do some recon. And then Gabe's like, oh, I guess I don't have to scan you in because, you know, it's only one expendable on this whole colony. He knows who Mickey is. He's like, yeah, no, like, I'm fine, let me in. And so he doesn't scan Mickey in, he lets Mickey go in. Mickey's walking and he goes to his room. And as soon as he gets to his room, he sees a naked body in his bed. And what is that naked body? It's Mickey 8! Oh no! Mickey 8's like, oh crap, I'm Mickey 8, aren't I? And then here we are, we're starting with chapter 3, and now they have multiples, and it's really bad. And at this point, Mickey is taking the time to tell the audience, to tell us that when you're on a colony ship, you gotta be lean and you can't do much, okay? Because there's not a lot of resources for food, okay? They only get 14,000 cows a day, which is not a lot. And so, and it can only be a certain amount of people, you know, which just 200 or so humans and thousands of human embryos, you know? So we don't need any stowaways, right? Any extra people means extra food and just extra resources. That means less food for other people and less chance of survival. So the fact that there's going to be 2 mouths to feed is a really bad thing. So now the Mickeys are fighting. They're like, dude, you can't be here. Like, they're like, okay, obviously one of us has to die, right? And so Mickey 8 is like, well, I just got here. You know, it shouldn't be me. You were the one who was supposed to be dead. And Mickey 7's like, at the end, after they're done bickering, they're like, okay, fine, it should be me. And so they go to this big gaping hole where, like, you can push someone in and obviously they die. It's kind of, like, scary. It's like a hole in the middle of the floor. And Mickey 7 is just sitting there waiting to die. And he's like, I'm having a hard time doing this. And then Mickey 8's like, I can push you in. And Mickey 7's like, okay. And then before Mickey 8 pushes Mickey 7, he's like, I can't do it, man. And then so he stands them up and they're like, okay, so what are we going to do? And they're like, we'll just split rations. So that means only 700 cows of food a day. And so that means they have to eat this sludge, which is kind of like food, but it's not really food, and it's nasty sludge. And people who have more money, like security people, they have more money and more cows to eat in a day. They can eat, it's all sludge. Like everything that they eat, like poop and grains and wood and all that crap, dead bodies even go in this compactor, and that's where they get their food out of. And so that means he's only going to be able to eat 700 cows, and he can't make his food fancy, because if you have more money, you can get premier food where it'll smell and look like chicken and not look like nasty sludge oatmeal, you know. But he's going to have to be eating sludge oatmeal because they're going to have to split the rations. And so they're talking about split the rations, and then like, okay, well, let's go back to the room. At some point, that Mickey 8 decides, I have to put on a wristband, because Mickey 7 sprained his wrist, and he's wearing this wristband around his wrist the entire time, right? Okay, and then where am I at? And then Berto comes to the room, and he thinks that Mickey 7 is Mickey 8, but Mickey 8 is really hiding somewhere in the room. And he's talking about, hey, bud, you know, last night was rough or whatever. And Berto tells Mickey that he saw him get eaten by creepers, even though he didn't see Mickey get eaten by creepers. And now Mickey's like, wait, Berto's lying to me. And how many other times in the past has he lied to me? Because he depends on Berto and Nasha to tell him the truth about his deaths, because that's the only 2 sources he can depend on other than his past uploads, and he doesn't always upload. And so he's looking at Berto like, I need to really reconsider my friends with him. He said this in the first chapter. I forgot to mention that. Because obviously Berto didn't want to save him in the first place. And then now he's not telling him the truth about how he died. And then they get a call from Marshall. Marshall's like, hey, come down to my office. Explain to me what happened. Berto was really taking the lead to explain, because Mickey's like, yeah, Berto, you explain it. This is really your fault in the whole first place that there's 2 Mickeys. But Mickey doesn't tell Berto that there's another Mickey. Berto and Mickey 7 are explaining to Marshall about what happened, and Marshall's like, this is, prepping for backup is an enormous investment. And he's really pissed that Mickey 7 died, and now there's a Mickey 8, because it takes a lot of the colony's resources to make another Mickey. As Berto's explaining it, he's like, you know, Mickey fit on his hole, bro, like I couldn't go get him. And then Marshall's like, actually, you could have got him, so I'm cutting both your rations. And Mickey's like, oh, cutting my rations? Because, you know, deep down, he's already splitting half of his rations with Mickey 8. So that means cutting his rations by 20% is even less than that. And that means he's going to be getting less food. And when you come out of the tank, after you come out of the tank, after you're printing into a new 8, after you come to a new Mickey 8, you're like super hungover. He says it's the worst hangover ever, and you're super hungry and you're super tired. And he usually gets the whole day off as the next Mickey in order to recover. And so this is also when we learn that Mickey one of the reasons that he became inexpendable is because he took a loan from this drug dealer, Darius Black. Why did he take the loan? Because his best friend Berto, when he was 15, he became a pro ping pong champion person, right? And then Berto took 9 years off after being a famous ping pong champion. He said, hey, I'm going to go off with a bang and I'm going to enter another tournament. And Mickey's like, yeah, bruh. Mickey one's like, yeah, you do that. And then he bets against his best friend that his best friend would lose the tournament. And then, because it's been 9 years since the last time he played this game, obviously he's going to lose. And then Berto wins the tournament. And so Mickey one loses all his savings. He loses all his money and the money that he took out a loan from Darius Blank. And so one of Darius Blank's goons comes in, because Mickey owes him $100,000 or whatever, and then he like paralyzes his body, and then Mickey's on the floor peeing on himself, and he's like, and then the goon is like, hey, I'll be back every day until I get my money. And Mickey's like, I don't know how this man's gonna get his money, I gotta get off this planet. And so Umberto's like, well, man, I'm about to go on this colony expedition, and this colony expedition of the Drekar, which is the ship that they get on to go to Nilfheim, this colony mission. This is the first one that's ever come to Nilfheim in the last 200 years since Nilfheim hit their planet. By the way, Nilfheim is not Earth because they have a red sun. They know of old Earth. Old Earth is mentioned a few times. So Berto is like, well, I'm about to go on this mission to be a pilot. I got accepted. How about you apply to be security? Because, you know, I'm famous. Maybe I have reach. Mickey one applied to be security. They said no right away. And then he was on a website. He was like, hey, Berto, what's an expendable? And Berto's like, nah, man, you don't want to do that. Next thing you know, Mickey's in the office with Gwen. This queen over here, she's the recruitment officer. And she's like, are you a complete and utter moron? Like, why would you want to do this? And then she's kind of like talking him out of it and kind of trying to say all these things like, why would you want to be expendable? And she's like, you know how many people applied to be a biochemist? 60,000. You know how many people applied to be a pilot? 20,000, whatever. You know how many people applied to be expendable? 1. Because the expendable slot usually goes to an inmate, a criminal. They usually have to force someone to be an expendable on a colony ship, because usually one person, and again, this person is always dying. Mickey has died 6 times at the start of this book, by the time it's the start of this book. And so she's like, why would anyone reasonable with any intelligence wants to do this? And of course Mickey one doesn't tell her that it's because he owes this gang person a bunch of money. he just tells him that he wanted a reason to go on a colony ship, and that he's not a scientist, and he's not a scientist, he's not a pilot, he's not a swords person, he's a historian. And she's like, an historian, isn't that kind of a hobby? And he's like, well, yeah. She's like, technically, isn't anyone a historian? Can't I be a historian? It's just looking up information. He's like, well, I mean, it's a little more than that, but kind of, yeah. Because, all the information is literally at a blink of an eye, because their phones are literally in their eyes. So his job is kind of worthless, but you will find out, a little bit later that he's obsessed with history. And as the book goes on, we get kind of breaks in our main story timeline to talk about what happened in old colonies and old stories of different colony groups landing on different planets. So yeah, Mickey one, he signs on with Gwen, and he gets accepted to be an expendable. 2 weeks after they were in the air, like flying towards Nilfheim. By the way, I think it took them like 7-ish years on this ship called the Drekar, on the ship to fly to this planet. It takes a long time to reach the planet. After like 2 weeks of flying, Marshall finds out, he gets a message about Darius Blank that, Mickey is basically running away. He owns the money. So that's another reason that Marshall hates Mickey. So after their meeting with Marshall, they meet up at lunchtime. It's Berto, Nasha, and Mickey 7. Mickey 8 is too busy taking a nap, because again, after you come out of the tube, after, being remade, you're very tired, very hungover. He's like, I just want to take a nap. And then he's like, don't eat all my food though. I want my food. And so while they're at lunch, Berto admits that someone was killed. And Nasha was like, who was killed? It was Gabe, the same guy who was at security this morning who let Mickey 7 in. He was killed. He was eaten by creepers. And Mickey was like, oh no, were the creepers following me? Did the creepers follow me, and then they killed Gabe when they got to the dome? And while they're at lunch, Nasha makes a comment. She's like, hey, you want to finish what we started in the shower? Mickey 7 was like, I wasn't in the shower. I was with Berto and Marshall. And that's when Mickey realizes that Mickey 8 was with Nasha in the shower. I mean, it doesn't get into any more strenuous detail than that, but that's like a little funny thing to add. And then we're at the point in the book where we're getting to know Marshall a little bit. And Marshall is a nationalist. They believe in the sanctity of one soul. They believe when the body dies that the soul dies and that there are no backups. So Marshall literally hates the idea of any Mickeys. He hates the idea of any Expendables ever. So that's like another prejudice that he has against them. And there are other nationalists on this expedition that just hates the idea of Expendables as well. So some people just look at Mickey like, ugh, I'm disgusted with him, you know. And a lot of people just think it's weird that he's, you know, someone who died and is a new person. And so Mickey's usually like left alone. Like people on the ship don't really bother him, even though it's only 200 people, you know. They all know each other, but they don't really mess with Mickey like that. Okay, and then we get a flashback, and then we meet Gemma. This is the actress who plays Gemma in the movie. Again, I haven't seen the movie yet by the time this video is out, but it's spelled with a J in the book, but in the movie they spell it with a G, which is so interesting because it's like they have Gemma and Gwen. I guess they thought it would be easier to have them both spelled with a G, but Gwen, the recruitment officer on Midgard, spelled it with a G, and then Gemma spelled with a J. Gemma is training Mickey, and she's telling him, Mickey's like, well, this is early Mickey days when he first signs on an expendable and they're in the air flying. And she's training him. She's like, she shows him a way around a gun. She shows him a way around like certain equipment. And he's like, well, you know, why can't we just use the automatic system? And she's like, well, in case everyone on the Drekker on the ship dies, you will have to be the one to take care of all the equipment. Now, we can use like backup machines, but it'll be easier if you just know a little bit now. So Gemma is Mickey's trainer. We get this story from Gemma about the ship of Thasseus. Man named Thasseus, he has this ship, and then he goes away for a while. And while he's away, his ship has been broken down. Everything's been taken, you know, and every now and then they have to replace a piece. Until after a while, the whole ship has been replaced with new pieces. And so she asks this question, is it the same ship as before? And Mickey was like, no, it's not the same ship before. It's a completely different ship, even though it was, even though each piece was replaced separately. And she said, that's exactly. So that's the only difference with Expendables, is you get replaced in pieces all in one go. But humans, we replace our pieces and we change little bit by time, like the ship. So that's kind of like a cool like little theory. If you look up the ship of Thasseus and like kind of compare it, I hope I did a good enough job explaining it. I thought that was very cool. This is at the point of the book when we learn about diaspora, Diaspora. This is the whole kind of premise of colonies. Diaspora is the spreading of humanity as widely as we can, making us disaster proof. The colonies, they're on the Drekker, the ship, which is taking them to Nilfgaard, which they came from Nilfheim. We have the Union, and it's this group that basically is in charge of making all of these colony trips, where it's like, okay, this ship, I want this ship, you're gonna go and travel to this planet. This ship, you're gonna go and travel to that planet. This ship, you're gonna go and travel to that planet. And they have thousands of embryos on their ship, and they're gonna go and they're gonna, you know, they have people in the ship. And once they land, they're going to make sure that the ship is okay. And then they're going to, you know, set the embryos to start to live. And they're spreading humanity to different planets around the galaxy. So the Union is in charge of all of these different colonist trips. Like I said before, Nilfheim hasn't seen a colony trip in 200 years. And the only way to get off that planet, which Mickey 1 needed to do right away to get from Darius Blank, was to get on the Drekker, get on this colonist trip, because it wouldn't be another one for who knows how long. Mickey 7 and Mickey 8 are in the room. They're trying to rest or whatever. And they're bickering a little bit, and Marshall calls them for a mission that Marshall wants one of them to do. But again, Marshall only knows that Mickey 8 is alive. They think that Mickey 7 is dead. And Mickey 8 was like, no, bro, you go. You know, you will do it. And then Mickey 7 was like, no, I just died. I don't want to do it. And Mickey 8 was like, dude, I just came out of the tube. I'm hungover and I'm tired, and you cut my rations. I need to sleep. You know, leave me alone to my own devices. And so Mickey 7 is like, fine, I'll do it this time, but you got the next one. He's like, okay. So Mickey 7 heads down to Marshall's office, and Marshall's like, all right, so we got a dead guy over here in the corner, another dead security guard, because the creepers ate at the metal in the ship. Okay, remember, they're living on the dome, but they still have the ship there that they're still using, and the creepers are eating at the metal. And they got into the metal, and I guess they killed the security guard guy. And so we need you to go out and get one of these creepers so we can get some research and some data on them, and to figure out why they getting into our stuff, and we need to find out a way to stop them. And so Mickey's like, okay. And so he starts gearing up. Berto and Nasha are going on this mission, and then we meet Kat Chin. Now, this woman is like detective something in the movie. I don't know who she is in the movie, but in the book, Kat Chin is an Asian woman, and I'm assuming this is going to be our Kat Chin because she doesn't play detective, but she's very inquisitive. She always asks Mickey a lot of questions. I'm just going to make her our Kat Chin for sake of resources. Kat Chin is a security person, and so they have her and two other guys. One of them's name is Duggan, and they're getting out to go and do a recon mission to go get a creeper to come back so they can do experiments on. And so while they're getting dressed, Kat is asking Mickey, like, hey, why don't you have what's the name of the gun? Kat asks Mickey, why don't you have a burner? Burner is this really big gun. And so Mickey thinks about a time when him and Gemma were training, and at the end of his training, they went to a closet, and she said, here's your graduation. And she hands him a gun, and she was like, put it to your head and finish the job. And Mickey was like, really? I have to do that? She was like, yeah, sometimes there comes a time well, you gotta take some action. He puts the burner to his head, he pulls the bullet, it doesn't go off, and then Gemma says, congratulations, you're unexpendable, you've made it. And so it was just a test, and so that's why Mickey deep down doesn't like using burners. Instead, he uses a linear accelerator. They call it an LA. It's a different type of gun. It's heavier, it's bulkier, but Mickey he rather carry that on the mission and then when they go out into the snow and look for creepers instead of carrying that burner, just because he has that mad memory. And then Mickey is telling another guy, Duncan, before they go out, hey, you should wear less heavy stuff. It's harder to run away from the creepers when you're wearing that heavy equipment in the snow. And Duncan's like, I mean, thanks for the advice, man, but you can easily die. I need this heavy stuff just in case they try to eat at me. The little tiny creepers try to eat at me. At least they can, the metal will stop them. And so Mickey was like, okay, I can only give as much advice. And then so Edward Ashton takes a break in the story. He tells us about Renoke. And again, remember, Mickey is a historian, so he loves reading about past failed colonist expeditions. So Renoke is when the people got off onto the planet and they got into the air. After a while, these little creatures, they were attacking humans for their water. They were getting into the human skin when the humans went out, and then they were burying their bodies into their skin and poisoning them and then killing them. So then after a while, all the humans were dying, and the expendable on that colonist trip kept making more expendables to try to keep their berths full, because again, you need a certain amount of people to keep it running. But after a while, the whole trip just failed because the creatures on the planet just killed all the humans. So that was one of the failed colonist expeditions that Mickey is explaining to us. Renoko. I'm not saying that correctly, but whatever. We have Mickey, Kat, Berto, and Nasha, and two other security guards, and they're going out and they're looking for a creeper to catch so that they can do experiments on. And so they're out, and then all of a sudden they hear a bunch of noise coming, and a bunch of creepers start coming. And of course, Nasha and Berto are overhead, and they don't see that the creepers, are coming. But you have, Kat and Mickey and the other two security guards out in the snow, and they're running for their lives and wait for it's thousands, hundreds of thousands of mini creepers coming. And so the mini creepers attack the two security guards, Dungan, because their equipment was too heavy. Mickey told them not to wear the heavy boots, but they still wore the heavy boots. And so the creepers killed them. Kat and Mickey, they were closest to each other because Kat was asking Mickey a lot of questions about being expendable. She's very inquisitive. She wants to know what it's like because it's like, are you immortal or not? It's kind of all of those type of theories in this book. Kat kind of pulls Mickey on this rock, and then Mickey shoots the creepers with the linear accelerator because her burner wasn't killing the creepers. Like her gun, her weapon wasn't doing anything to the creepers. But Mickey's weapon, the LA, is making all the creepers go away. And then Mickey takes one of that he shot, picks it up, he holds onto it, and Nasha comes down, she puts down a ladder or whatever, and then Kat and Mickey 7 are able to go up into the helicraft, and then they're safe. And so they go back to the dome, and Marshall's pissed. Marshall's like, "What are you doing, Kat? Why are you saving Mickey when he's the one who can come back to life and the other two security guards are dead?" And she's like, "Chill out. I didn't save Mickey. I couldn't reach the other guys. They were too far away, and Mickey was closest to me." And then Mickey's like, "What?" Mickey 7's like, "Well, what are you yelling about? We completed the mission. All right, we got a creeper for y'all to experiment on. Why are you so pissed?" pissed. And Marshall was like, well, we have 2 people more dead. We joined this mission with 200 and now we're down to 176. Again, they need a certain amount of people to keep the mission going. And then we get a flashback to Mickey 1 and Mickey 2, and we learn about their first deaths. Mickey has said he had been on the Drekker flying for about a year. He was kind of bored, you know. He would do his training with Gemma, and he would walk around and eat and sleep, but he really only had 2 hours of training once a day or so, a couple times a week, and he didn't have much to do. And then a scientist comes to him, and he's like, and they're like, all right, Mickey, it's time to test this out. Go out and do something, and he has to have and then he has this very painful death where like his insides are being like burned from the inside out, and it's very terrible, it's very traumatizing. And then he dies, and then he has to wake up as Mickey 2 again. He gets a day off of rest. And then we see Mickey 2 come into the life. And then Mickey 2 is the shortest Mickey in ever existence, because Mickey 2 has to go out and he dies all over again in a very similar way to Mickey 1. And we find out that Mickey 3 actually is the longest that Mickey has ever lived, because he was kind of traumatized from Mickey 1 and Mickey 2. And so he just got to be Mickey 3 for a very long time. We have Kat and Mickey sitting at lunch, and Kat's kind of depressed because she lost 2 of her security friends, and Marshall was hard on her. And then the Mickey and her are just kind of chatting it up about like creepers and what they saw. And Nasha comes to sit at the table. Love Nasha. And she's like, what you doing chatting with my man? Kat's like, oh, how's it, y'all been together for like forever, right? Since like we first started. And Nasha was like, well, it feels that way. She was like, why, you want a shot at him? And then Kat was like, I don't know. And they're like joking. Nasha's like, no, in all seriousness though, touch him and I'll gut you like a fish. That's what I love about Nasha. She don't play. Nasha don't play. I love that about Nasha. We see that Mickey has this reoccurring dream, and I think this is one of the reasons that Mickey 7 doesn't want to upload some of his memories, because he keeps having this dream. He kind of doesn't want to lose his dream, and this dream is he's back on his home planet, and he's sitting in he's in the mountains, and he's sitting at this bonfire, and at this bonfire across from him is a giant caterpillar, and the caterpillar is just looking at him, and the caterpillar starts moving its lips, and then Mickey's like, you know, can't understand you, and the caterpillar is just like, and then fades away like the cashier cat from Alice in Wonderland. And so that's the recurring dream that Mickey keeps having. After that, Edward Ashton starts to tell us about how when these colonies missions happen, they don't really know what they're getting into when they go to another planet, right? So that they might know that the planet is kind of hot or kind of cold. They might know what other planets orbit around it, but they really don't know what they're getting themselves into. And what they knew about Nilfheim was that yes, there is some sort of oxygen. They did not expect it to be cold. And then we learned how Mickey met Nasha. It was basically a year after 2's death on the Drekker, the ship that they're on. There's this big thing called a carousel. And just think of a track in a gym, like a very big track that goes around the whole entire ship. It's a long track, and Marshall was like, hey, I want everyone to go on this track twice a week just to boost morale, but they can only eat so much. So when you can only eat so much, you also don't want to exercise and burn a lot of calories, because you need those calories, because you would just want to eat them back. So not a lot of people are on the carousel. Not a lot of people go there to exercise. You know, Mickey was there sitting down reading about past failed colonies, because he's a historian, he can't help it. And Nasha's like, hey, what are you doing here? You're the expendable, right? And they start talking. She's like, you're kind of cute. They're like, yeah, we get along. They go to his place and they bang, obviously. And because there's not anything else for them to do. And she's like, you know, I'm not a ghost chaser, right? And he's like, no, I know you're not. Wait, what is that? And she explains that a ghost chaser, and remember, there are people that are nationalists on this ship. Nationalists, again, believe that expendables are abominable creatures, disgusting, nasty. They believe when the body dies, the soul dies. Ghost chasers, who are kind of fetish expendables, because they're nationalists, and they're like, they're the one thing I can't have, and so they fetish kind of Mickey. And so Nasha's like, how many people have you been with on the ship? And he's like, I don't know, a few. And she's like, yeah, some of them are ghost chasers, only wanting you because you're expendable. And she's like, I'm not that. And then we learn about Nasha, and her parents were immigrants, and her parents came on this ship called the Last Hope, which came from a planet called New Hope. And that planet failed, that colony failed, because it was a civil war, because it was this creature kind of described as a bird, and the people were divided on whether or not that bird that was native to the planet before they got there, the humans couldn't decide if the animal should be eaten, fried up with sauce, or protected. A civil war against vegans and people who love chicken. And so that's why, you know, the planet that had the civil war again, you know, all the humans were killing each other. And so Nasha's parents got on this ship called the Last Hope, and that's how they went to Nilfheim. And Nilfheim was very racist, kind of racist towards immigrants, and they were like, yeah, all the people who came in on the Last Hope, because of course they had all dark skin, all the people who came in on Last Hope, they brought diseases with them. And so that's why Nasha fought very hard to be a really good pilot, because, you know, her parents are immigrants and she had to prove, you know, go to the schools, and she had a hard time going to the schools being a black woman, because her parents were immigrants. So dang, even in the sci-fi universe, racism is prevalent. So then it's the next day, and we have Kat. She's working with Mickey 7. Of course, Mickey's like, hey dude, I almost died so many times. Can you pick up shift? And Mickey 8 was like, no man, what if Kat asks you questions that I don't know the answers to? You've been working with her, you go. Again, Mickey 8 is very lazy. He does nothing. He sucks. And so Mickey 7's like, all right, fine, I'll go do it. And so Mickey 7, he does his shift with Kat, which is basically doing runs outside again, right? And so they're doing more recon outside, but it's not like heavy mission, you know, where they need more security. They're just like walking around outside. And this time she takes Mickey's advice, and she takes a LA accelerator or whatever, the linear accelerator, instead of taking a burner, because she found that, you know, Mickey discovered that the linear accelerator kills creepers better than the big burner that she was using. And so they go out to the field and they're chatting. She's asking a lot of questions about Expendables. She's very interested, and she's like, how do you feel about immortality? And then Mickey brings up Theasis's boat. Gemma, his trainer, taught him about that early on, and she's like, oh, is that the same as Schroeder's cat? And he was like, wait, no, it's not the same, but then kind of is the same. I don't know if you know what Schroeder's cat is. I'm going to use this portion of the video to kind of explain it to people. If you put a cat in a box with a piece of equipment that is poisonous, and you close the box, you know that the cat will die because the poisonous gas opens out and kills the cat. But you don't know for sure because the box is closed. Until you open the box, the cat is both alive and dead. It's probably dead. But you don't actually know the cat is dead because the box is closed. And Schroeder thought of this. It was just supposed to be a theory. You know, he was like, I don't like this. This is just supposed to be like a little silly theory, and everyone took it seriously. He's like, I don't like this. I hate this. Yeah, and then he actually gave up psychological theories, and he went to go study biology, which is funny. And that's my favorite part of that story, that he just wanted it to be a little unserious theory about his cat, and it ended up being this big thing. He was like, nah, y'all taking this too seriously, man. I was just trying to joke around. I'm about to go study biology and plants. And so that's honestly how it ended. Okay, that's the end of Schroeder's cat. I kind of like this moment. I added this little moment about Cat just to remind you that Edward Ashton, our writer, is a quantum physics author, and you'll have moments if you go and read this book where you're like, oh wait, what is he talking about, where you have to reread it a few times. But I love to learn, and I also love to learn when it's against my will, when it comes at me very organically and naturally. While Kat and Mickey 7, remember she thinks that he's Mickey 8, are out and about walking, doing their recon, she's asking a bunch of questions. Out of nowhere, they hear a bunch of creepers coming, and then they see a bunch of creepers coming, and they're coming for them. And then Kat's like, oh no, we gotta shoot. And before she gets the chance to shoot, Mickey just drops to the ground. He just folds like a puppet. And next thing you know, he's blinking and he sees two bodies. He keeps blinking, and then he hears he's coming around. And then he blinks and he wakes up, and then Kat's are by him. And Kat's like, whoa, dude, what happened? You passed out. And he doesn't know who said he's coming around. He just knows that he's back on the ship. And then Kat's like, yeah, we're being attacked by creepers, but the creepers stopped out of nowhere and your body just collapsed down to the ground. Like, what happened? What did you see? I don't know what I saw. Something strange is like happening. And all throughout the book, Mickey 7 is texting Mickey 8. Remember, they're using their ICOMs, and so, but they're both registered as Mickey 8. So we'll see text messages in the book as Mickey 8 talking to Mickey 8, like, hey dude, I'm about to go to the dinner hall. Hey dude, where you know, what are you doing? Blah blah blah. But they both say Mickey 8. And then we also have been seeing messages from Mickey 8, but it's like some words with some asterisks in the middle of it. And so Mickey 7's like, ugh, Mickey 8 is just sleep texting again. He's probably just sleep blinking and texting me. It kind of looks like the word understand with asterisks like in between. So that's something to note. Okay. And then Berto, it texts Mickey like, hey dude, let me treat you to some lunch. And then Mickey 8's like, no, let me go, I want to eat. And then Mickey 7 was like, no, I almost died twice since you've been here. No, I've almost died 3 times since you've been alive. I'm taking this. I'm getting the meal. I don't care if you've been out of the tank. You've been with Nasha without me. I'm tired of you. And so Mickey goes down, and Berto's like, hey man, get whatever you want. And then Mickey's like, how are you able to afford this meal? You know, Marshall cut both of our rations by 20%. And then Berto was like, yeah, I made a bet with the guys for their money, for some of their money, that I couldn't take the jet and like tilt it in last minute and make this cool little turn through the mountains. And Mickey was like, why would you do that, bro? That was super risky, super stupid, just for some extra rations. And then Berto was like, well, I was able to do it, didn't I? And now look at me and you eating like fat kings. And so the guys who he made the bet with was like, Berto, you shouldn't have done that, bro. You know you could have done it. Like, you played us. And Berto's like, no, you shouldn't have made the bet. And so one of the guys tries to punch Berto, but of course Berto's is, he's super dude. And so he's like, no. And then he punches the guy, and the guy's down, and there's kind of like a fight in the cafeteria. And then Marshall comes. He was like, you two are in my office again? Dang it, what is this fight? And he's like, Berto, why are you using our pilot jet? There's only 2 pilots. It was very stupid of you to risk your life just for some more rations. Just for that, I'm going to put you on some of Nasha's shifts. I'm also going to cut your rations by 5% more. And then I'm also going to cut your rations, Mickey, because you're in my office again, by 5% more. And Mickey's like, I didn't even do nothing. I had nothing to do with this. And Marshall was like, no, because, Marshall just hates Mickey just to hate Mickey. And so Mickey's rations get cut by another 5%. Mickey 7 go back to the room. Mickey 8 was like, dang, our rations are cut again. How many more times? Mickey 8 was like, all right, dude, I'm starving. Our rations keep getting cut. I'm going to go out with Nasha so I can eat some of her food. So you need to get lost. She's on her way to meet me. So then Mickey goes to the gym. Again, the gym is empty, just like the carousel is empty, because no one wants to exercise and burn calories when the whole colony is in a calorie deficit. He's at the gym and he meets Kat. He has a run-in with Kat, and they kind of are like very flirty with each other. And you're like, oh, is Mickey 7 gonna cheat on Nasha with Kat? Like, you kind of have this thought in the back of your head. Mickey then explains to Kat while they're in the gym talking. He's like, yeah, I can't go back to my room. Nasha has someone in there. And she's like, oh, I didn't know you guys had an open relationship. He was like, yeah, sure, you can say that. And so Mickey 7 spends the night at Kat's room. They wake up the next day. She's like, hey, you want to hang out later after our shifts? Do you have anything to do? And then he goes back to the room. He's like, hey, you picking up my shift today? And the shift is really just like spraying and helping the tomatoes. Mickey 7's like, no, dude, you gotta do something. So he forces Mickey 8 to go to do days of work while Mickey 7 is in the room sleeping. And so Mickey 8 comes to the room. He's like, hey dude, I ran into Kat and I didn't have my wristband on, because remember, Mickey 7 hurt his wrist and he's been wearing this wrist wrap the whole time. And he's like, hey man, I didn't wear my wrist wrap. She might think something's up. Mickey 7 does go and meet with Kat, and then Kat's like, all right dude, I know that there's 2 of you. I ran into you earlier and you didn't have your wrap on. Like, what's up? And then Mickey 7 explains everything, and she's like, okay, I'm not gonna snitch on you. Like, I hate Marshall just as much as you do. Like, he was super rude about my friends dying. And so she gives him a kiss on the cheek, and then he goes back to his room. Mickey takes this time to tell us the story of Manikova. Manikova is this super rich genius. He did his own colony mission where he took all his money and he went to a planet called the Gault, right? He brought you resources because the people on this planet was like, oh, we haven't had this stuff in a very long time. We need all these resources. And then after a while, people realized that they started going missing. And they were going missing because Manikova was stealing people and making copies of himself, but he needed more resources to make copies, so he was stealing bodies and putting bodies in his machine and making copies of himself. And then after a while, there was a war on this planet, and then of course Manikova won because he had all the resources and he brought all these guns and everything, and so he killed everyone on this planet who wasn't him, and he just kept making a bunch of copies of himself. And the Union was like, oh no, this is terrible, right? He just kept making more multiples of himself. And so then this world, the neighboring world to the Gault, was this world called Eden, and the Eden sent this bomb called the Eden Justice, and they sent a message to Mikova like, hey dude, you gotta stop what you're doing. They were on their way to bomb him, but one thing about when you send a message before you go to bomb someone, Mikova saw that the Eden Justice, the bomb that they were sending, was in orbit. And so he bombed them in a matter of 12 seconds. Because it took the ship like 7 years to get to him to kill him, right? Or 7 months, something like that. And so he bombed the ship. And so that went flat. But another neighboring planet to Mikova's planet, the Gaunt, is a smaller planet, but it had more of a military, and they didn't send any message. They sent something called the Bullet, and they didn't send a message, and they just sent out the Bullet literally, I think, 3 weeks after the Eden Justice failed, and the Bullet went and destroyed the entire planet of the Gaunt and all of Mikovas. So that's why the Union and everyone hates multiples, because Mikova went and made a million multiples of himself, and he had to have a planet destroyed. So that's why we hate the multiples. You know, after Mickey is hanging out with Kat, and you know, they're talking about, we know that she, you know, she's explaining how she knows that there's 2 of them. Mickey goes back to his room, and Mickey sees that Mickey 8 and Nasha are together in bed, and Mickey 7's like, what are you doing, bruh? And Nasha, and Mickey's 8 was like, yeah, I told her. And Nasha was like, it's whatever, bruh, get in. And then so Mickey 7 and Mickey 8 and Nasha, they get together, and he's like, I don't want to talk about what happened. They're all chilling together, thick as thieves, 3 of them in the bed, and then of course Kat walks into the room, and she's like, oh, I shouldn't have come here. And then Nasha's like, girl, close the door. And then Kat's like, no, and then she runs away and leaves. And then, you know, Mickey 7's super stressed out, like, oh man, I should go chase after her, because he doesn't know how he feels about, like, you know, he doesn't know about his feelings for her. And then in the middle of the night, 2 goons come, and they get Mickey 7, Mickey 8, and Nasha, and they wake him up, and they're like, Marshall wants to see you. And so they take him to Marshall's office. So now Marshall knows that it's 2 Mickeys, and Marshall's pissed. He's like, what is going on? And so Nasha's like, yeah, I did what I did, and F you. She said that to Marshall, because she can do whatever she wants, really. Mickey thinks that one of them is about to die, and then Marshall's like, I have a plan on how to get rid of creepers. We have something called the antimatter bombs, and we want you to wear these backpacks with antimatter on, and then we want you to go to the tunnels and detonate them and kill all the creepers. And then we find out about this antimatter, and this antimatter is what fuels the ships, all of the colony ships, to go and fly around across these planets. And now there was something called the Bubble War a very long time ago, and there's a reason why they don't use antimatter as weapons anymore, because of the Bubble War. What is the Bubble War? So basically, you take these antimatter and you put it into like a gun, and then you can kind of like destroy anything in that little vicinity. And the scientists were like, oh, we don't want to use this. But of course, on old Earth, where this antimatter was made into bombs, the bubble bombs, the people started using the bubble bombs on each other, and everyone on old Earth was just using bubble bombs on each other, and they ended up killing over half of the planet. And so that's why the Union banned using antimatter as any form of weapon, and you can only just really use burners and linear accelerators. And so when Marshall brought out these bubble bombs, it was like, what? You're not supposed to have these? Like, that's super dangerous. But he was like, I don't care. You go do this mission. He said, if you don't do this mission, then Kat's gonna go do it. And then Mickey turns to Kat like, Kat, what? And then Kat said that she would be the expendable in Mickey's place. And Marshall's like, yeah, there won't be any Mickey 9. It's gonna be Kat if you don't do it. And so Mickey's like, okay, fine. And so Mickey 7, Mickey 8, they both have antimatter backpacks on. Berto and Nasha drop them into the tunnels, and they're walking around the tunnels because they have to find where the creepers are, and then they have to go and find and kill the creepers. Marshall did find out from the scientists that the creepers are sentient, and Mickey's like, no, we can't kill these creepers, obviously they're sentient and it'll be genocide. And Marshall's like, I don't give a flying, you need to go and kill those creatures now. And so that they're down there and they're walking around, and Mickey 7's like, I can't do this, bro. Like, I can't kill these creepers. He finally tells Mickey 8 about the one who saved his life. Mickey 8 is like, I don't give an F, bro. Like, I literally don't. And then they start to get that message thing in their eye, and this message is saying, understand, coming from Mickey 8. And they're both looking at each other, both awake. And then Mickey 7 is like, oh wait, I thought you were asleep texting this whole time. That wasn't you. And Mickey 8 was like, no, that wasn't me. It was something else. That actually happened before they were dropped into the tunnels. But it doesn't matter. Just know that they're getting another message from someone else. Also, before they were dropped into the tunnels, Mickey 7 asked Berto, like, hey dude, before I officially die, can you tell me what really happened to Mickey 6? Because I really don't trust you. And Mickey 7 was like, the creepers ate me, but I don't trust you. And then Berto says, no, I didn't say they ate you. I said they grabbed you. I saw one of them take your body and haul you away. So the creepers took Mickey 6 and hauled his body away. And that was the last Berto saw him before Berto reported Mickey 6 dead. So honestly, Mickey 6 could be alive. I think that the creepers are using Mickey 6's ocular to send messages to Mickey 7, Mickey 8. That's what I think has been happening this whole time. And I like that Edward Ashton doesn't tell you that directly. That's something I literally figured out after going back in my notes and reading this now. So now we have Mickey 7, Mickey 8. They're going through the tunnels. Mickey 8's like, hey, I think we should split up, because again, it's 2 tunnels. They diverge. They go to different tunnels, and they're both texting each other. And then Mickey 8 FaceTimes Mickey 7. He's like, dude, what are all these creepers are coming after me? And then Mickey 8 has on his FaceTime video, and he shows a bunch of mini creepers coming after him, and then he gets attacked, and then we see that Mickey 8 dies. Mickey 7's walking, and then he comes across the really big creeper, and the big creeper is like, are you Prime? Are you Prime? Yes, I am Prime. And then the creeper says, we want to talk. And Mickey says, and so they did. And so they talked. And then Mickey says, this is the 3rd time that I've walked out of creeper territory and lived. And so Mickey's walking. He's lived. He approaches the big dome, and he's like, I have the antimatter bomb, and I'm going to bomb this whole place unless Marshall comes out now. I want to talk to him. And then the Marshall's like, no, I'm not coming. Okay, fine, I'm coming. And so then he comes out, and then Mickey's like, we're not going to kill the creepers after all. Marshall's like, kill Mickey. He tells Kat and 2 other security guards to kill Mickey. And then Kat's like, wait, can we hear him out first? And then Mickey's like, you can't kill me. I have this bomb across my back, and the creepers have Mickey 8's bomb, and I taught them how to use it. And then Marshall's like, why would you teach them how to use it? And he was like, because we shouldn't kill them. They're a sentient species, and it's not right. So you kill me, and my bomb goes off, and their bomb goes off. And you can't kill me because I'm your only liaison to the creepers. And then so Marshall's like, fine. He has no choice but not to kill him. And so Mickey ends up being able to come inside. I forgot to mention that the creepers told Mickey that they would leave them alone as long as the humans stayed out of their tunnels and didn't build anything in the foothills south of the dome. And he told Marshall that and everyone else. Then Marshall calls into his office. He's like, well, man, it's been a couple days since the creepers have had the antimatter weapon, and they haven't used it on us, so I just want to shake your hand. And then him and Mickey shake hands, and then he's like, all right, there's something I do need you to do, though. I need you to go in. I want you to put the antimatter back in the chamber. And then Mickey was like, what? You want me to put it back? I haven't uploaded in a long time. I need to go upload. And then Marshall was like, no need to upload. There won't be a Mickey 9. And then Mickey's like, oh, no, you don't. You're not going to have me go put this antimatter back. Just figure out how you're going to live without the antimatter. Because Marshall sent both Mickeys to go out. He was going to have to live in a world without the antimatter if it was being used. Because he wants Mickey to risk his life putting the antimatter back and dying. And he wouldn't print another one. And so Mickey was like, you know what? Actually, I quit being expendable. I won't be your expendable anymore. And you still need me because I'm your only liaison to the creepers. And they have the other antimatter bomb that could kill all of us because they're under the dome. And so Marshall's like, ah, Mickey. And Mickey gets away with it. And this is the end of the book. And it's spring. Who knew Nilfheim is not actually an ice planet. It actually has spring. It just has very long winters. And now it's going to have a long spring. And so we start to see shrubbery come up. And we start to see insects. You know, they still wear these biomasks that they've been wearing this whole time outside. But they finally have hope that, yes, that they can live on this planet because the planet is no longer an Iceland. And so we see Mickey 7 still alive. And he takes Nasha out on this nice romantic walk. They're on a walk, and he cooks some rocks away, and then he pulls out the other antimatter backpack that Mickey 8 had that he had hidden. And Nasha was like, ooh, you sneaky thing. Mickey 7 was like, this is the only way that I wasn't going to get killed if I hid it. And she was like, how did you get the bomb back from the creepers? And Mickey was like, I simply asked for it. They didn't know what it was. I just told them that we were people doing reconnaissance, and you know, our backpacks were supplies. And they gave him the backpack back. And so Mickey 7 is keeping Mickey 8's backpack hidden under rocks somewhere on the planet. And that's how the book ends. You know, the planet is in spring, and Mickey 7 is alive. He's the only Mickey living. He's with Nasha, and he's no longer the expendable. And that is the end of the book. I want to read my favorite review that was at the end of the book. This is from the New York Journal of Books. Mickey 7 is a smart philosophical satire masquerading as an adventure novel. It draws readers in with a flippant black humor and a clever premise, then stabs them in the back with a devastating insight into the human talent for suppressing intolerable truths. I love it. I love it. I'm going to post all of my annotations on my Goodreads if you want to go and read them. I'm also going to post all of my notes as like screenshots at the end of this video because I honestly think that was funny. And I think if Edward Ashton watched this video that he would want to see my notes too. Because if I was an author, I would love to see who the people who appreciated my work. I would want to see their notes and what they grabbed from the book. So thank you for watching this super long video. I hope that you learned about what the book was about. I hope that you subscribe because I have plenty more of these videos to come. They take a lot of work, babes. But I had a blast and this was very fun. This is something that I love to do. Thank you for watching. I love you. God loves you. Your friends and your family love you. I hope to see you in the next one. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. I have a book club if you want to join it, and follow me on all of my socials. I have Instagram, TikTok. I have several TikToks, and my Goodreads page as well, and I have a letterbox as well. So when I go see the movie, you can go see my letterbox review on it. Okay, bye. Thanks for watching.